Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. As part of a comprehensive news analysis, today we'll be discussing 5 important articles out of the Hindu newspaper daily edition. As always, we're available on Telegram, so you can download the app via the QR code given here or the link in the description below. With this, let's try to understand the first important article, which is important for GS paper 2, which is related to the United States. When we talk about the United States, where there is truly a separation of power between the judiciary, executive and the legislature, it's a very important tradition where the executive reaches out to the legislature via the national security strategy. When we talk about the national security strategy, it is a very important tradition under which the mandate of the executive is shown to the legislature that what is the strategy which we are going to go take forward with regards to national security. And we have been anticipating Biden's national security strategy for quite a long time, and finally, as mandated under the Goldwater-Nichols Department of Defense Reorganization Act of 1986, the NSS is something which needs to be communicated as the executive vision of national security to the legislative. So this is not something which is happening under no legal sanction or under no statutory law. It is a statutory law in the US wherein the executive shows the vision, what is the basic strategy the executive is going to follow to the legislative about what is the basic tenets of the national security policy which is going to be followed. And this is done under, please remember this, Goldwater-Nichols Department of Defense Reorganization Act of 1986. And this is an important document because it shows what is the US thinking about as for its foreign policy. So it's an important document because at the end of the day, it is going to now set the tone for Biden's administration and generally its engagement with the world. So let's try to understand the basic contours of the strategy itself and what is he trying to push in that regard. So Biden's administration has put in this very decisive decade the following focuses. First, sustain US leadership across the world, improve the US economy via national security strategy itself, build a vast network of alliances and partnerships, counter China as its strategic competitor. And this is very important because for the first time it has not said that Russia is a problem or Russia is a real threat. The real threat is China. Russia as a disruptor of national security and generally worldwide politics, boost US competitiveness in all spheres, and defend democracy. But this is technically the hypocrisy of the US. Their defending democracy means look for oil and technically exploit other nations. Now the NSS has put in 3 basic concepts to achieve these targets, which is invest, build and modernize. Very important, can come in the examination. Generally, invest, build and modernize. And what is the concept? They will invest in tools of American power and influence by strengthening the economy at home, improving critical infrastructure, specifically in microchips and semiconductors, because China right now has a monopoly in that regard. Second, build. Once you've invested, you build strongest possible coalition of nations and the recognition of both the US ambition as well as limitations in driving global geopolitics unilaterally. So basically, it's about the limitations also and its ambition to be the unipolar power to push global agenda in that regard, and then modernize so as to cater to the wide-ranging demands of internal and external security simultaneously. So these words are very big but very important. We know the focus, which is technically to remain a superpower, invest in critical infrastructure, build relationships and modernize as per the needs of the world itself. This is important because India can also learn from this, that what is the way to go forward as a superpower in that regard. But what is the most important aspect which has been pushed through this document is that China has been seen as the only competitor which is capable and has the intention and has the intent to shape international order in a fundamental way. Russia has been seen as a disruptor, but China is the one which can actually change the world order itself. So if bipolarity comes today, the second pole is not going to be Russia but China. This is a very major change in US perception coming out of the Cold War politics. But though Russia remains a problem, China has been seen as the real competitor in that regard. So where does India fit in the larger story of the NSS, which is equally interesting? And here there is encouraging news because there is a continuity in the perception of the US towards India, where India has been both seen as a bilateral and multilateral partner in the Indo-Pacific, and as the largest democracy it can also be a major defense partner. And this is a very important point, because in the NSS we have never seen India being mentioned so explicitly. Regional partnerships such as Quad, which is India, Australia, Japan and the US, and the I2U2, India, Israel, United Arab Emirates and the US, are two organizations in which the US wants to engage with India, and therefore these two organizations, I2U2 and Quad, should also be India's priority, because the US wants to engage with us in this context. Now, what does the Biden administration want to push? It wants to push clarity and direction into certain verticals. And second, and by issuing this document, what Biden also does is, it is one of the most politically anticipated documents in presidential doctrine in the US, and finally we have it in front of us. So the topic is very small and simple, but it's very important. The NSS technically is based on a very important concept of a statutory obligation of the executive to show the legislative what is the basic agenda they are trying to push when it comes to national security. What is encouraging for us is that India has been seen in positive light, China as the real competitor, and three very important words which we can also use from time to time, and you can use it in the examination: invest, build and modernize. Please remember this: invest, build and modernize is not specific to the US. We can also use it as a nation. So it's an important concept in that regard. So the first topic was to understand this very important anticipated document which has come through from the US, and now we know that we have been seen as a major defense partner. With this, let's understand our second important topic, which is anti-superstition law in India. When we talk about anti-superstition law in India, the context of this is a very horrific murder of two women under ritualistic human sacrifices in Kerala, and this has created a new front for a debate. Before we go into the nitty-gritty, the basic point which the article is making is that superstitious practices are leading to people getting identified as witches. Women in India have been vulnerable to this concept itself. So the concept of the witch, the concept of tantric practices which revolve around human sacrifices, have persisted over a period of time, and these practices have led to close to 100 deaths a year. There is no central law in India which talks about anti-superstition. We have a lot of different state laws, but the problem is all of them are very, very specific to the state itself. So the debate which has been created recently is based on the concept that we need a central mandate. And in the context of what has happened, and I will show you the data, that with 100 deaths, close to 100 deaths every year with regards to witch practices or ritualistic human sacrifices, the government of India needs to intervene, because the piecemeal basis in which it has been now taken up, and not all states have any law itself, we need a central mandate in that regard. So the brutal murder of two women as part of a ritualistic human sacrifice in Kerala has shook the nation. In the absence of a comprehensive law at the center, what is being pushed is that we need an anti-superstition law at the center, and that cry has grown louder with this incident itself. So how prevalent are these practices? First, let's try to understand the quantum. As per the 2021 report of the National Crimes Reports Bureau, the NCRB, 6 deaths were linked to human sacrifice, while witchcraft, 68 of them. 68 plus 6, 74 deaths have been linked to some form of superstitious activity in India. The maximum number of witchcraft cases have been reported in Chhattisgarh, 20, followed by Madhya Pradesh 18, Telangana 11, Kerala 2 cases of human sacrifice. In 2020 itself, there were close to 88 deaths due to witchcraft. 11 died as part of human sacrifices. So the NCRB report tells us that as of right now, 2021, we have the data of 74. And the basic point is that in the year 2020, we had 88. So it's hovering around the 100 mark. 100 murders in India are done every year, close to 100 are done every year with regards to human sacrifice under witchcraft and superstition. This is absurd in 2022. Basically, we live in the digital age, we live in the age of knowledge. Everywhere you look, there is some form of information. Our surveillance techniques have improved, the country is going forward, and when we get these kinds of news, it only makes us think that have we actually come out of 18th or 19th century. So therefore, these practices have no place in the modern world we live in, and these 88 people in 2020 and the 74 in 2021 have died because of practices which are all hoax and have no basis in the scientific world. Therefore, there is a lot of hue and cry for a law which can be put all across India, pan India, against witchcraft, superstition and cultic practices itself. The absence of a nationwide legislation, few states have enacted laws to counter witchcraft and protect women against this deadly concept of witch hunting. Still, there are a lot of gaps in the legislative sphere when it comes to witchcraft. So, what are the states which have enacted something? Bihar was the first state to enact something, the Prevention of Witch Practice Act in 1999. What it said was, and this is the basic mandate everywhere, whoever identifies a person as a witch, person who has identified, can face a jail term up to 3 months and a fine of 1,000 rupees. A similar law was then passed by Jharkhand in 2001, the Prevention of Witch Practice Act. Chhattisgarh in 2005, which has the most number of witchcraft related deaths. Odisha in 2013, Maharashtra 2013, Rajasthan 2015, Assam and Karnataka 2020. The point is that this is still a partial list and India needs an anti-superstition law in the context of what is happening right now. So this article technically points out a space in which legislation is needed and there's a need for a central law at this point of time. And because we live in this world where these things have no place, the government of India needs to react as soon as possible. So the first article dealt with the concept of the national security strategy of the US, some encouraging news and some interesting aspects related to China. The second one is about a hue and cry for a new law which is pan-India against anti-superstition. Basically, these activities are prevalent in India, still persist, and there are a substantial number of people dying, specifically women. Women are already a vulnerable section of the society. They need to be protected, and witch hunting, which has no place in 2022, needs to be stopped in India in that regard. With this, let's look at the third important concept, and this is something which we have been pushing through in the past 1 month, which is stubble burning and Delhi. And unfortunately, looking at all the different solutions, looking at different aspects related to stubble burning, be it pelletization, be it torrefaction, be it compressed biogas, in the end, Delhi is back to square one. And this is the basic point of this news, that stubble burning has increased the PM 2.5 composition of the air in Delhi by 26% on Sunday, highest this year itself, and this is only going to go up as the winter comes through. It was 21% on Saturday. Now the point of the matter is, this is a standard story all year, and this is what I'm trying to point out through this article, that we all talk about so many solutions, but we are there every year, same place, same concept, same problem. Stubble burning has now again created problems for the residents of Delhi. The atmospheric conditions are such that the smoke from Punjab and Haryana is blowing towards the capital. And now what has happened is that in Delhi, 586 teams have been constituted to monitor construction activities, and demolition ban has come through. Basically, rising pollution level has now started to choke the Delhiites in that regard. And all these activities have also been complemented with water sprinklers, anti-smog guns, so as to check localized sources of pollution. The basic point is, this article is nothing but an eye-opener for us, that we've been talking about this concept for quite a long time now, that we need this, we need that, torrefaction, pelletization, coal, this, that. But the problem is that when we are coming to applying them, the story is becoming the same. And this is why we are talking about it here, that stubble burning, as many solutions as you want, in situ, ex situ, we are coming back to the same point over and over again. So we need to have a permanent solution for this. And why am I pushing you this concept? Because when you're talking about this in the mains paper, you need to talk about that how every time we are talking about hypothetical, theoretical solutions, but on the ground nothing is changing. Therefore, we need to do something concrete about this. Every year we can't have a host of articles talking about different solutions, but nothing is done in that regard. Delhi government, the central government, both have to take some concrete steps in that sense. Governance is not about hypothetical solutions, but about practical and on the ground solutions. Let's move to the fourth article, which is a very encouraging one, a small one, but a very, very encouraging one, which is that finally dolphins have returned to the Ganga. And this is technically the victory of the Namami Gange program itself, because via the Namami Ganga program, the Ganga water quality has improved so much that the dolphins are coming back into the Ganga itself. So the Gangatic dolphin is back, which is very, very encouraging. And the most encouraging aspect is that under the 23 projects which were happening within the Namami Gange, close to 460 million liters of sewage was stopped from flowing into the Ganga itself. And since 2014, it has taken us close to 8 years, but finally we have seen a tangible impact that the Gangatic dolphin is back. Under the program, there is even more scope right now, because additional treatment capacity of 33 million liter a day will be created between 2022 September and December 2022 in Jhansi, Kanpur, Unnao, in Shuklaganj, Sultanpur, in Jaunpur and Bagpat at the cost of 2,304 crores. And this will help us further improve the quality of the water, which is important. And for the examination, we have some important information in the article, which is that the breeding ground of the dolphin is technically Brijghat, Narora, Kanpur, Mirzapur and Varanasi. And these activities will help in restoring these breeding grounds. As of right now, the estimated population of dolphins in the Ganga is technically 600, and this is a number which is quite up from the dismal number which we had close to 4 to 5 years back, which was around 150, 160. Now, this article is something which shows us that if there is conviction and if there is execution, we can reverse environmental damage. So the Ganga water quality becoming better and the dolphins coming back is a testimony that the Namami Gange program has been working. With this, let's move to the last article, an interesting one again, which is a small conference but an international conference which is being held by the Election Commission in Delhi. And it is important because it talks about an organization which is extremely important for you in the examination itself. So the Election Commission will host a 2-day international conference, and conferences come in the examination. Role, framework and capacity of election management bodies. And this conference becomes important in the context of people losing faith in elections. International cooperation is important. As we speak, Brazil is also going for its election today, which is going to be very significant for the future of Brazil itself. Elections after Donald Trump's defeat in US have become a very contagious issue. People have stopped accepting their defeat in that regard. Therefore, international cooperation and these conferences become important. So, as a lead of the cohort on election integrity, which is again a questionable aspect nowadays, which was established following the Summit for Democracy held in December, the Commission said it has taken a collaborative approach and invited Greece, Mauritius and the International Foundation for Electoral Systems to be the co-leads. And now what becomes relevant for us for the examination are these obscure organizations. So for the purpose of the examination, very important, let's try to understand what is this organization. It is an international non-profit organization. It's an NGO founded in 1987. It's not a UN body. It is technically not a specialized agency of the UN. It is a body which is registered in the US as an NGO. Founded in Virginia, it technically provides assistance and support for elections and electoral stakeholders in new and emerging democracies. Since its inception itself, it has worked in 145 countries. As of right now, has different programs in 50 countries itself: Asia Pacific, Africa, Eurasia, Middle East, North Africa, Americas, everywhere. This organization is registered in the United States, and it works to make sure that good governance and democratic rights are provided with technical assistance to election officials, collaborating with civil society. So basically, it's about developing trust. So why are we discussing this news? We are discussing this news because as of right now, Brazil is going for its elections. Elections in themselves have become a contagious issue, not just in India, but all across the world. And when the Election Commission in India organizes a conference like this, it becomes important for us to understand it, because it gives us an opportunity to understand obscure organizations. And we did get one, the International Foundation for Electoral Systems. And let's keep this in our mind before we go into the examination, because it will help us in our larger preparation. So Before we go to the mains question, what have we covered today? Simple and short topics, but very important for the examination. First, we tried to understand the national security strategy of the Biden administration, which is a very anticipated report which needs to come out as mandated by law, where the executive shows to the legislature what is the intent and vision of national security. Within it, China is being seen as a major problem, India as a major defense partner, Quad and the I2U2 being considered as two organizations in which the US wants to engage with India. That is something encouraging. Second, we tried to understand the need for an anti-superstition law all across India, because close to 100 people are dying every year because of the concept of witch practices and witch hunting, and this is something which has no place in 2022. The third topic was then related to a story which we've been covering for quite a long time, but the result remains the same, which is stubble burning has now become a major issue for Delhi itself. Delhi has seen a spike in the smog coming via Punjab and Haryana, and basically we are back to square one. The need for the RA is concrete plans and no theoretical or hypothetical solutions. The fourth topic was something very, very interesting, which is the dolphins coming back in the Ganga. A very encouraging news and a victory for the Namami Gange project. And this topic was to understand a conference which has been organized by the Election Commission and the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, which is an organization which is relevant for your examination. With this, let's look at the mains question. What is the national security strategy of the US? Where does India figure in it? Basically, what is the strategy itself and what is the place of India within that strategy? Second, in the context of recent events, does India need a central anti-superstition law? A very relevant question in the context of the activities which happened in Kerala. With this, I would like to end this session. Thank you so much for your patience. I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.